It had all the hallmarks of a Grand Slam final, but we had to keep reminding ourselves that it was just a semi-final. But in the end, Aryna Sabalenka has advanced to her second consecutive championship decider here in Melbourne with a straight sets win over Coco Gauff. She did it in an hour and 42 minutes, 7-6, 6-4. Josh, there was some tension out there, especially in that first set.
Oh, look, it was a really great match in my opinion, but the start, Aryna Sabalenka looked irresistible. She got out of the gates very quickly, but boy, Coco Gauff did a really good job of just hanging around, and in fact, it was up 6-5, and we thought she was going to go on and take that first set. So, look, the match had it all. I thought it was a quality match. It delivered in what we were expecting. Aryna Sabalenka, boy, she's looking good. She's looked great all tournament, all summer here in Australia, and for me, she goes in the final as a firm favourite. That was a wonderful performance tonight.
Simon, 6 breaks of serve in a topsy-turvy first set, and you're going to take us inside the numbers regarding the service performances tonight.
Yeah, well, I think anytime you've got 2 elite performers like this, the margins don't have to be great to create separation in the match. So, and Josh called the match, but I think first serve percentage, Sabalenka lands 76% of her first serves, and she's got an enormous first serve to begin with. Coco Gauff's one of the very few players that can maybe match Sabalenka for speed, but she only lands that first serve tonight across both sets 57% of the time. So that's a big gap in a match of really fine margins, 19% in terms of first serve landed differential. And then the work done in behind the second serve. So Sabalenka wins 52% of her second serve points tonight on her own serve. Gauff's down at 39.
Yeah, okay.
Which I think ties in with, and curious to get Josh's thoughts, I think it ties in with what Aryna's trying to achieve on second serve return, on top of the baseline, coming at you, taking away time, signalling intent at all times, at every opportunity. And Gauff tries to do it a little differently on second serve return, but I think against Sabalenka, I think it was tough tonight. I think she got exposed at times.
I think you're right. I think that was the biggest stat for me of the whole match, was points won on second serve. And look, it's back to the drawing board, I think, for Coco Gauff. And what I admire about Aryna Sabalenka, she lost a heartbreak in the US Open, that final. She's gone away and made some improvements in parts of her game that have been getting exposed. We know the second serve with Coco Gauff is being exposed, the forehand as well. So I'll be fascinated to see the learnings from this and moving forward. We're just 19 years of age, Coco, so there's still time. But they need to be addressed if she wants to go on and continue to win Grand Slams, because you're going to get exposed in these big matches, and that's sort of what happened tonight. Look, it doesn't necessarily look like it on the scoreboard, but it's just the 1 or 2 percenters that are the big differences, and that was the difference tonight, the second serve.
What about court position, Razor?
Well, I think in terms of court position, I think exactly as Josh has outlined, I think Coco Gauff on second serve return, she wants to create a little bit more time. She knows what she needs to try to deliver her best tennis in those moments. So she's prepared to be that perhaps half a metre back off the baseline, but a couple of times tonight on big moments on the second serve, particularly on the juice court, Sabalenka slides her out wide to that forehand, and Gauff doesn't necessarily move forward and cut that angle down, shut the space down, and goes on to lose the point. There was even a big moment where she's really fighting for survival at 5-4, Sabalenka serving for the match. Second serve, the opening point of that game, and she's behind the baseline, gives herself that little bit more time, mishits the forehand return. Those are huge moments, and I think Josh has given a bit of an insight into why that might be happening.
Yeah, and I think it might even need to be an adjustment of how big she swings as well. I mean, when you're as gifted athletically and as great athletically as what Coco is, she wants to run and chase all day, and that's what she reverts to when she's uncomfortable. At times are tough, but if you want to win a Grand Slam on this court, different to the US Open because it's quick out there, you have to have a knockout punch, and she just didn't have that tonight, unfortunately.
I think if you're wanting to run and chase all day long against Aryna Sabalenka, you're going to be doing a lot of running and chasing. So I think it's a really good point.
Well, at the time of recording, the second semi-final is still playing out, so we don't know the result of that. But can you see anyone, Jung or Yastremska, being able to stop Sabalenka now?
No chance. And I mean that in the nicest possible way, with all respect, with how great the other 2 semi-finalists have been and have played. But I just think the class of Sabalenka had only dropped 16 games leading into this final. And again, under pressure, I think she's improved mentally and emotionally, and also technically and tactically. Everywhere I look in a game, she's continuing to improve, and I love that about the champions of our sport. So I think it's a big ask for either of those 2 semi-finalists to step up on the centre stage and win a Grand Slam here, where Aryna Sabalenka has done it last year.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. In fact, it's impossible to disagree. I'm not going to disagree. Zhang, I think, brings something in terms of weapons to the fight, but I think Josh makes a really good point as well. Sabalenka, for me, is competing better than I've ever seen her compete before in terms of that little bit more measured and composed, that little bit more clarity of thought under pressure. So as Josh outlined, she's continuing to improve. It's hard to go past her.
Switching our focus now to day 13. It's men's semi-final day. And our match focus, Josh, is Novak Djokovic, the world number one, taking on a young man from Italy whom he met, I think, 3 times in the back half of last year in Jannik Sinner. The head-to-head is 4-2 Djokovic.
Yeah, we saw at the back end, we saw a couple of times where Jannik actually got the better of Novak. Look, I don't read too much into those results or those stats. I think beating Novak in best of 5 is just a completely different. It's a different beast. He's so good over 5 sets, and he seems to manage the journey so much better than the other players. Hasn't been at his best, and he would have readily admitted that this tournament. I think he's been a little under the weather, but I just like that he's gradually got better and better as the 2 weeks has gone on, and I think he's peaking for the back end. So for me, I personally think he goes in as a favourite. I know a lot of people think Jannik Sinner has the weapons and the game to do it, but the physicality, for me, I'm just not so sure Jannik is there yet in his physical progression and where he's at. So I think Novak, until someone can beat Novak here, he's won it 10 times. I'm not convinced anyone can beat him this year.
Well, I think it's a fascinating one. I'm really looking forward to it. It's as excited as I've been all year about a match at the event. So can't wait to see it play out in front of us. I think we know what it takes. It's just, it's easy to sit here and talk about it on a couch, on an armchair, about what Jannik Sinner needs to deliver over 3, 4, and 5 sets and 3, 4, and 5 hours potentially. I think he's got some unique qualities. I went back and took a look at that match in the group stages of the ATP year-end finals last year.
7-5, 6-7, 7-6.
Yeah. And there were some things in that I want to pull out. So when the rallies went beyond 5 shots, and not many would be able to do this to Novak, when the rallies went beyond 5 shots in that match, 43-36 in Jannik's favour. But you've got to be able to get it done at both ends of the spectrum. So you've got to have a great serving night, and he did that night as well. He served 15 aces. Novak served 20 of his own. I think tomorrow he's a chance if he can have an outstanding serving night. And then I'm going to work against myself a little bit, because when I look at these two players across the calendar year last year, 2023, the 2 best pressure performers on the ATP Tour, Novak number 1, Sinner number 2.
I remember discussing this, yeah.
And for different reasons. Novak, nobody won more tiebreakers in 2023 than Novak. 76% of his tiebreakers he won last year. That's an amazing number. It's a big gap to number 2. But in terms of break points saved, and I spoke about the importance of the Sinner serving performance tomorrow night, Jannik Sinner saved 70% of his break points last year across the year.
Wow.
So I'm curious to see whether one or both or either of those hold up tomorrow night. I think if Jannik Sinner has a great serving night, he's going to have to save break points against Novak. We know that. Then he's going to have to confront him in a tiebreaker and get that done. And then my final thought is, and I'll let you throw back to Josh, John. My final thought is, I think there could be a change here, because the 5-set record, Josh has spoken about it, the physicality. Novak's 38-11 in 5 sets. That speaks for itself. Sinner's only 5-7. But my gut's telling me his time is now. So now I close the book on the numbers. And I go, my gut's telling me, my intuition, my feel is, I think it's Sinner in 5.
Okay, an analyst closing the book on the numbers. Could be ominous. Josh, how much, those 3 meetings, 2 in the ATP Finals and then 1 in the Davis Cup final, it was 2-1 Sinner, if you look at those. How much psychologically does something like that impact a slam, setting aside the best of 5?
Definitely gives him hope and gives him confidence, there's no doubt. And I watched all 3 of those matches, and he played brilliant, and he was confident. And I would say he's probably taken a fair bit of that form into this year's Australian Open. So look, he'll be confident, and he would think he's a chance. But one thing being confident, and there's one thing being able to do it. And I just think it's so hard to beat these greats, the big 3 over 5 sets. History will tell us that. It can be done. He got close, Jannik Sinner, at the US Open, where he had match point on Carlos Alcaraz when he went on to win it. So he's definitely a chance, but for me, I still think Novak has got a point to prove, and I think he goes in as favourite.
Who are our 2 men's finalists, Djokovic and
Zverev? I think Zverev's been in great form in the United Cup. Hasn't played necessarily well here, but last night against Alcaraz, he just stepped it up. It'll be a challenge, of course, against Medvedev. Those two guys don't see eye to eye. They don't get on that well. So there'll be a bit of tension in that match. But for me, I just like what I'm seeing from Zverev. Finished the year number 7. He was talked about as the next big thing, and these young guys now have caught him. He's now 25, 26 years of age. So time is ticking, and he needs to deliver.
Agree or disagree?
Well, I like a little bit of spice in the Zverev and Medvedev match, and maybe a little bit of spice on the couches here tonight, because I'm thinking Sinner and Medvedev for me. So
okay.
I don't like going against the expert, but I'm going to take the risk and say it's the Sinner and Medvedev final.
Well, wonderful. That bodes for an exciting day 13 of competition, men's semi-final day. And if you'd like to hear this episode in full, just search The AO Show wherever you get your podcasts and be sure to subscribe.